Senator Coons, we had some breaking news as we came on the air. I want to read you this X post from Caroline Leavitt on the president leaving the G7 summit early and get your response. Quote, President Trump had a great day at the G7, even signing a major trade deal with the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Keir Starmer. We can get to that in a moment. Much was accomplished, but because of what is going on in the Middle East, President Trump will be leaving tonight after dinner with heads of state. Take that as you will, your response to the president choosing to leave early.
Well, look, frankly, the president has traveling with him the ability to stay in touch with our armed forces and to stay on top of any situation in the world. I hate to say it, but my gut hunch is this was a party at which he wasn't especially welcome. He has picked fights with every one of our major allies represented at this summit. His chaotic and ill-conceived tariff fights with our partners and allies may well have meant some very awkward and difficult conversations. I hope that he is coming back for a constructive reason, but I'm alarmed, given some of his recent tweets, that this might be the next step in spiraling towards getting involved in a major war in the Middle East.
I was confused about this announcement from Caroline Leavitt, and for a couple reasons. One, if you're going to announce that you know your principal is leaving the G7, you gotta put a little more around it. This has inspired more questions and it's given answers. But two, to cite the Middle East in this. Part of on the agenda for the G7 was the crisis in the Middle East.
Right.
The G7 members have a stake in what is going on. They want to contain the conflict, and I dovetail that with the fact that over the years the G7 has expanded to instead of just coordination about the economy, now it's broader world crises. The war in Ukraine, Russia's war in Ukraine was on the list. Why leave if that is the reason? Because the president got a skip at his hotel, let me tell you. That's how it works, folks, okay? There's a skip at the hotel. He can have his meeting.
So President Trump and Secretary Hegseth are spectacularly ill-prepared and unqualified to deal with this exact moment, which it pains me to say, but is the reality. And if you're about to face a major challenge in terms of our national security and the future of the Middle East, and you are still facing a challenge that President Trump hasn't stood up to of how to deal with Russia's aggression in Ukraine, my core values and my gut instinct, you want your partners and allies around a table with you, pulling in the same direction, seeing things the same way, using their resources and their capacities alongside us. That's not his gut instinct. His is the exact opposite. He sees America first as America alone, and he doesn't see the value in having our NATO partners and allies, our EU partners, those who are at this table sitting with us, jointly figuring out how we're going to deal with the chaotic and uncertain moment we have in the Middle East and with the very real challenges of Russia's continued aggression. And I'll remind you, these two are connected. Russia's constant bombardment of civilians in Ukraine is facilitated by Iranian drones. Our critical competitors and opponents around the world, our enemies, the DPRK, North Korea, the PRC, Russia, and Iran are increasingly coordinating, sharing troops and equipment and material and strategy. And we don't see a strategy out of the White House for how to deal with it. And I don't think we're prepared for a full-scale conflict in the Middle East. He may have gone home to think about that, but I think he's leaving exactly the folks he should be consulting and working with to be prepared to deal with it.
I think y'all are so nice. I swear the two of you it was just such a nice.
I'm sorry, we still live on Earth One, I guess.
Just very nice. No, look, Senator, I agree with that. But here's the other side of the coin you just put on the table. If you watched what happened with the Prime Minister today in Canada and how that conversation went with the president, you understand why this communique is coming out this evening that he's leaving early, because he did not like how that went down. He was put in his place, and he was one among many equals.
Yes.
And he doesn't like that. He right now thinks he's driving every conversation around the globe. And what he's realized in that moment is that these other partners that you just rightly laid up also have a say in this moment, whether it's economics or, as Simone noted, the broadening into the foreign policy space. How then do your colleagues deal with this this childish behavior from a sitting president who can't stay in the room long enough to actually make the case, whatever that case is, but rather is peeved because he's not the center of attention, or that he is corrected by his peers because of his brutish behavior in other scenarios. How do your colleagues, I don't care, Republican or Democrat, majority or minority, frame this at this time, given everything that we see unfolding in the Middle East?
Too many of my Republican colleagues, not all of them, but too many of my Republican colleagues, since Trump became president in January, when he says outlandish things like Canada should be the 51st state. I'm going to invade and take part of Denmark, Greenland. We're going to retake the Panama. La, 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 la. Like nothing happened, like he didn't say that. Because it's so nuts.
Right.
Right? The very core of NATO would be shredded by our actually trying to take Greenland.
Right.
And it makes absolutely no sense. So mostly they've said, don't pay attention to what he says, pay attention to what he does. And then on some of the key issues, I'm going to bring your costs down, not up. He does things with his tariff wars with everybody that have caused just huge, incoherent, roiling the markets. Anyone who's got a 401k or who cares about their savings or is worried about the markets has been on a roller coaster ride. He caused so much unpredictability and chaos in our international relations in his first 2 months that he has switched to immigration enforcement and being aggressive and forceful about it, just to change the subject.
Right.
So that we're not talking about what's about to happen in the U.S. Senate, which is a bill, a Republican-only bill that will throw 16 million Americans off of health care and is taking food from hungry children and health care from seniors and disabled Americans to pay for a tax cut for billionaires.